When I moved to D.C. just over 10 years ago, I showed up to the apartment that I had signed a lease for after having only seen a few photos on Craigslist. Don't worry, it turned out to be the perfect place for me. So much so that when about 5 years later, I got a text in March of 2020 saying, "Your landlord is selling your place and you have 30 days to vacate the premises." I decided to buy it. I mean, I really didn't want to move during the height of COVID, but also I really loved my place. It's been my home for the full decade that I've lived in DC. I love it almost as much as I love my girlfriend, with whom I'm moving to a new place this weekend. Don't worry, it's not going to be about my girlfriend, it's about my apartment. Now, moving, as most of you who have moved at least once in the last 10 years can likely attest, brings up a lot of stuff. Psychologically, yes, but also literal stuff. And the longer it's been since you've moved, the more stuff you have to work through, psychologically and literally. So instead of backpacking or going to the beach, I spent my summer vacation, these last couple of weeks, going through piles and piles of stuff that I've accumulated and held on to over the years. I found bus lists from summer programs that I led 15 years ago. I found my 5th grade Talmud book. I found an actual Scantron sheet, which I thought you had to turn in. I don't know, I don't remember. That's how long ago it was from. Moving forces us to confront our relationship with our possessions. Every time we move, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what do I care about enough to carry with me on this journey? Now, fittingly, the second half of this week's double portion, Matot Maseh, literally means journeys, and it begins with a list of the 42 times that the ancient Israelites broke camp and moved during their 40 years of wandering in the desert after being freed from slavery in Egypt. Something I never thought about in the past years of this Torah portion, but I'm definitely thinking about this year. What did the ancient Israelites bring with them during all these moves? Did they bring anything sentimental from Egypt with them? Or did they just bring the bare minimum? A verse elsewhere in the Torah helps us answer this question by stating that their clothes did not wear out during the entire 40 years that they wandered. The commentators ask a very practical question. How is it that in 40 years their clothes didn't wear out? One rabbi, the Ibn Ezra, offers a very practical answer. It's because they had a lot of clothes. Another rabbi, the Ramban, rejects this answer, seemingly scandalized by the idea of our ancient ancestors wheeling duffels full of clothes through the desert for 40 years, or whatever, camels, I don't know, anyway. The whole point of wandering in the desert for 40 years, he explains, was to demonstrate how little we needed besides our faith in God. In fact, the Torah verse that immediately precedes the one telling us that their clothes didn't wear out says a person doesn't live on bread alone, but lives on anything that the Lord decrees. So, according to the Ramban and most other commentators, the ancient Israelites each had one pair of clothing that miraculously didn't wear out all 40 years, reminding them and us that the spiritual is much more important than anything material. Ramban then ends this comment by quoting Job, "Humans are worms," which I know I'm getting distracted here, but is just an incredible way to end anything. It's like, hey, honey, can you pick up some milk at the grocery store? Love, Aaron. P.S. Humans are worms. Okay, back on track, though, and joking aside, why does he quote this strange verse from Job? I think he does because there's actually something very morbid about the process of moving and taking things with us. Each journey is really just a preparation for the final journey, the journey out of this world. And in that last move that we all will make, we don't take anything with us. When confronted with our mortality and our finite existence, it's kind of hard to make the case for holding on to a lot of stuff. This more ascetic viewpoint has been held by many rabbis throughout the centuries. It's a perspective probably best demonstrated through a story that's told of a traveler who went to visit the Polish town of Radzin, where the Chafetz Chaim, a famous 19th century rabbi, lived. When this visitor came to the rabbi's apartment, he was shocked to see how empty it was. "Where's your furniture?" the visitor asked the rabbi. "Where's yours?" the Chafetz Chaim responded. "Oh, I don't have any. I'm just passing through," answered the man. To which the Chafetz Chaim responded, "I'm also just passing through." We're all going to die, which is not a very uplifting sermon. Humans are worms, or at least our fate is, and we're all just passing through. No thing matters. But there's a fine line, or in this case, a single space, between the idea that no thing matters and nothing matters, which frankly doesn't feel very spiritual to me. And so perhaps just to justify the fact that I am not moving with only this shirt on my back, I'd like to offer a different perspective in defense of taking things with us on our various journeys. The Hasidic rabbi known as Reb Tzedek Cohen of Lublin comments on the famous verse from Psalms, "The world is filled with God's possessions." He writes the following: "Everything that a person encounters has happened intentionally and as part of a divine plan, so that that very thing can teach us about ourselves." This is a very different perspective than the rabbi who owned that sparsely furnished apartment, the Chafetz Chaim, even though they lived at the same time period and just about 300 miles from each other. Yes, we might not take anything with us when we die, but everything, every single object, has something to teach us. After all, the world is full of God's possessions. Everything has a spark of holiness within it. What's so beautiful about Rav Tzadok HaKohen's approach is that he sees spiritual potential and meaning in physical things. Material objects can also teach us spiritual lessons. But if you saw my apartment right now, you'd still be wondering what happens if an object has fulfilled its purpose and already taught you the thing. I have to admit, ideally, we've integrated that lesson and we no longer need the physical object itself. Ideally, we carry those teachings and memories with us without the need for the physical reminder. As psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl writes in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, in the past, nothing is irretrievably lost, but rather, on the contrary, everything is irrevocably stored and treasured. For him, those non-physical memories were what sustained him during the concentration camps. And for all of us, our memories are what we carry wherever we go. But if you have not the best memory like me, maybe the objects that we hold have a unique purpose beyond teaching us something, and that is to help us remember. Each move is an opportunity to reflect not just on where we're going, but where we've been. And if objects that we hold on to help us do that reflection, then perhaps they still have a purpose. For some people, moving forward means never looking back. But this week's Parsha spends a lot of verses recounting all 42 journeys after they've already been completed, to demonstrate the importance of reflecting on the journeys we've made. There is spiritual value in remembering where you've come from and hopefully the ways that you've grown. And if our physical objects can help us reflect, then they might be worth holding on to. We can't hold on to everything. Moving inherently means leaving things behind. Ideally, we do carry those lessons and memories with us as we move forward in life. But our possessions can help us tell our life's story. And even if that story ends in worms, that story, how we tell it, is what matters most. Shabbat Shalom.